It has been a while since I've done this, all right? And all I have to say is welcome back, everybody, all right? We have made it through the 2-month hiatus of The Walking Dead, and we are here to yet again do a prediction video for this week's up-and-coming episode of The Walking Dead. This is Season 7, Episode 9, entitled Rock in the Road. Now, as always, I mean, if you guys have been sticking with the channel for a while, you know how this works, okay? Spoiler alerts. I can't predict a future episode of The Walking Dead without spoiling a few things that happened in the past, and it's been about 2 months since we'd last seen an episode of The Walking Dead, which is crazy, you know what I mean? We're used to hiatuses from The Walking Dead, especially with that big cliffhanger at the end of Season 6. That was horrible. Everybody hated it. Everybody hated life at that point. But anyway, we've made it through that. We've made it through a very grueling first half of Season 7, and we are finally starting to hashtag rise up. That was the stupidest thing I possibly ever could have done. But with that being said, everybody, the synopsis for this episode is as follows. And you can go ahead and read this on AMC.com as well. I will leave a link in the description for you guys to follow along if you guys want to, okay? Rock in the Road, Season 7, Episode 9, synopsis is Rick is introduced to a community. Or a new community, rather. I kind of botched that. Whoops. Rick is introduced to a new community. That's all we got. That's all we got to go on right now for the synopsis. Now, I feel like there's probably a bigger synopsis or a bigger preview on my DVR. So, I don't know. I might read that at the end of this little prediction video. So, if you guys want to stick around to that, I will boot up that and we'll see what it says on there. But as far as AMC.com goes, this is it. Rick is introduced to a new community. And that is all we have. That's all the info that we are given. Now, there's been tons of hype about this episode in recent weeks. Not so much over the past 2 months, just in recent weeks leading up to the premiere, or the mid-season premiere, rather. Understandable, you know what I mean? That's sort of how it always is, especially with a really hyped sort of mid-season premiere, you know, like this. We finally get to see Rick crack. He took as much punishment as he possibly could from Negan, and he cracked in the mid-season finale when he's basically out there risking his life for Negan, getting supplies so that nobody in his community would die, and he came back to Olivia basically getting shot in the eye. And of course, Spencer dead on the ground too. So that's 2 community members right there. So I feel like that's probably what finally set him off. And I'm kind of glad that it happened, you know, to Spencer. I might be a psycho for saying it. Probably a lot of other people agree. Spencer was an asshole. There's no other way to put it. But did he deserve to die? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to sound super immoral, but anyways, this episode has been hyped for a while because we finally have the entire group back together, or at least, you know, a portion of it. The only one I think that's not with them right now is Carol and Morgan, you know, but that's obviously apparently happening this episode. Maybe. I think with Morgan, maybe not with Carol because she's off on her own in that little house thing, and I don't know. She's a whole new situation, and she's honestly starting to tick me off. But with that being said, this episode has been hyped because they're finally all back together. Daryl and Rick had that awesome big brother like hug thing that they had going on at the end of last episode, and it was a very, very nice episode. You know what I mean? It was a nice ending, you know, compared to what we saw last time for a finale, which was somebody getting their brains bashed in, and we had to figure out who it was, and you know, that's what we had to deal with for about 6 months. But this time we only had 2 months, and it was a much nicer ending. You know, we were just so hyped because they're all back together now, and we want to know what the hell they're going to do. What's their plan? What's their strategy against Negan? What do they have in store? Right? I feel like a lot of those questions might be answered this episode. Now, in terms of weapons, I don't know if they have a plan. You know what I mean? In terms of guns, because Alexandria, guns and ammunition, that was, that was sort of their thing, you know? The Hilltop had a lot of food at the time. Alexandria had ammo and guns and just weaponry and stuff like that. They had the armory stocked. And we know back in episode 4 of season 7, Negan took it all. Or at least that's what we think. There's still a theory roaming around there somewhere that somebody hid some guns inside of the grave that Maggie was supposed to be buried in. But with that being said, with that out of the question, let's say for instance, that it wasn't hid there. Nothing was hid there whatsoever. What are they going to do for guns? We're still not sure on that. They're definitely going to have to do some gathering. So don't expect a full-fledged attack on Negan and his compound the first episode. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. 100%, it's not going to happen. And there's a few sneak peeks out there right now. The first one actually came out as soon as the last episode ended, I believe, and it was basically a sneak peek of everybody walking out of the hilltop building down to the gate. Basically, Rick saying, they're sort of trying to devise a strategy. Daryl rather suggests that they blow them up. Maybe they don't need the numbers. Maybe they could just, set them on fire, blow them up, take him out that way. Not a bad idea. But at the same time, how are they going to do that as well? You know what I mean? The Saviors aren't 100% stupid. They could definitely devise a plan. But with that being said, it wasn't really, that sneak peek wasn't really focusing on that. It was really focusing on this right here. And that was the fact that Rick basically said, if they come looking for Daryl, we have to be back at Alexandria, ready to answer that call. And basically, Jesus stops him right there, saying, you don't have to get back right now. He introduced him to one of the radios that he actually picked up, probably from on the run, to, the Savior's compound to rescue Daryl and stuff like that. He probably picked up a walkie-talkie there, somewhere along the way, rather. And he basically suggests, we know when they're coming. This is how they communicate. So if they ever come, we can go then, right? We don't have to go now. And they basically are like, well, if we're not going to go back home, then where are we going? And that is when Jesus brings up the idea of him finally introducing Rick and his group to a man named Ezekiel. So confirmed, Jesus does know about Ezekiel. We kind of thought that he did in the comic books, but he didn't really bring it up here in the TV show until now, which is exciting because that is where they're going. Rick is introduced to a new community, aka the Hilltop. Not the Hilltop, the Kingdom. Did I say the Hilltop already? I meant the Kingdom. I don't know if I said the Hilltop already. If I did, then I'm sorry, but the Kingdom. Ezekiel and the Kingdom. Embarrassing. It's been a while since I've even done a video for YouTube, so I apologize. But with that being said, introduced to a new community, the Kingdom, and of course King Ezekiel, which I'm very excited to see. I hope that we're going to see a Morgan reunion here with Rick as well. That would be kind of special because, again, very good friends there with Rick and Morgan. Of course, Morgan's the first one that Rick saw when he first woke up in the coma, which we know, he's kind of special to him. He was off in his own little world there for a little while, but he finally made it back. We all know Morgan. You know what I mean? I don't have to go over that, but I just can't wait for it. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be very cool. I can't wait for Rick to meet Shiva. I can't even wait to just see Ezekiel and Shiva again, because it's been since episode 2 that we've actually seen them. We haven't seen them since episode 2, which is just crazy to think about, because this first half of the season was all over the place. You know what I mean? Like, the first episode was with the main group and the Saviors, and of course the deaths of, unfortunately, Glenn and Abraham. And then the second episode, again, with the Kingdom, the introduction of Ezekiel. Third episode, The Cell, that was with Daryl, basically being held captive. Episode 4, Service, that was back in Alexandria, again with the core group and Negan sort of introducing himself. Episode 5, Go-Getters, was with the Hilltop. The first time we've seen the Hilltop the entire season. Yeah, definitely the entire season. Episode 6, Swear, was obviously with Tara when she made a return. And stuff like that, Tara and Heath, rather, and the introduction of the Oceanside community, which I am interested to see if that makes a play in the second half of this season. I think that it might, because we, like I said before, in the review of episode 6, Swear, where Tara was at that Oceanside community, the camera seemed to pan, or at least, it seemed to me to really emphasize on the fact that they had a huge gun locker, that community. They really didn't need to show that. If you really think about it, they didn't need to show that because it's just Tara. You know what I mean? They didn't need to show that they were completely armed to the teeth if that wasn't going to be somewhat of significance, later on in the season. So that's what I think is going to happen there. I think that she probably will break her promise and tell Rick, that she knows where a bunch of guns are and she knows where another community is, and hopefully they will help them fight back as well. It's definitely going to be, good for all of them because they can finally get rid of the Saviors once and for all. But I don't know. I feel like that girl is going to be a bit on the pissy side of things, since Tara breaks her promise. If she does, that is. But that's what I'm kind of interested to see if that makes a play. Because, again, huge gun locker. That would supply a whole hell of a lot of ammunition to fight against Negan. Episode 7, of course, Sing Me a Song, was focused on really Negan and his compound, and then, Carl assaulting it, and of course, Rick, not Rick, just sort of Negan and his compound, yeah. So that was that, basically. And then episode 8, of course, was the one we just saw, was with pretty much everybody in it again, sort of a really good episode with everybody sort of introduced, with everybody sort of being in the episode at once, which obviously the Hilltop and Maggie and Alexandria and Daryl and the Saviors, and that was all really cool. I like that. The only one we didn't really get to see was, again, the Kingdom and Ezekiel. We did get to see Carol and Morgan, which was sort of, a part of the Kingdom, of course, but not the Kingdom itself, not Ezekiel himself, or Shiva, by the way. So that was sort of upsetting. But with that being said, that leads us to this weekend, guys. Episode 9, Rockin' the Road. And Rockin' the Road, I think, sort of leads to, the title sort of leads to what this next sneak peek is, which actually I believe just came out today. This sneak peek basically has Rick and the group, and including Jesus, on the road. I think, personally, they're probably going to see the Kingdom, to introduce them to Ezekiel. And I think that's where they're going. I think that's where they're hidden. And they come basically across a roadblock full of cars. The entire thing is just blocked off. There's no room whatsoever. You cannot get by with a car. And basically Jesus rather says, this must have been the Saviors. They don't want anybody getting too close, because actually off in the distance you can see the Saviors' compound. Jesus and Carl both point that out, rather. And, that's probably been placed there by them. And Rick basically just says, we'll move them, we'll get through, and then we'll move them back. They don't need to know that we've been here. So they are going to the Kingdom, and then at the very end of the sneak peek was something was something very interesting. And that was basically Rick looking in a pair of binoculars that Michonne told him to, and then it cut to a scene where it looked like there was a tripwire set up with like bundles of dynamite or, something on it like that, just explosives, and it was basically set on a hair trigger so that it would slam down on the switch if anybody touched that wire, and seemingly, blow anything and everything up, around it. Sort of like an alarm system, if you will, like a booby trap, probably going on to the way to the Savior's compound. But again, I feel like in order to get to the Kingdom, I feel like you have to go through there. So a very smart idea, maybe set up by the Saviors for groups not to really communicate back and forth to each other. So that's definitely not a bad idea by them. So I'm just curious on how they're going to get past this. Is Rick really a specialist with disarming this type of stuff? That's what I'm kind of interested in seeing. So at the end scene, though, we get to see Rick basically panning in, or not really panning in, but looking sort of into the camera and looking at the switch, at the very end scene. And that was definitely interesting. So other than that, we've seen some teasers and some promos. We don't know exactly if it's to do with this one episode. But with that being said, it could be like the next few episodes, the entire next half of the season. We're not really sure when this stuff happens. So we're not going to really go over that, really in depth. But if you guys want to see the promos and the teasers, and of course the 2 sneak peeks that I was talking about, I will leave a link down in the description below to each and every one of those videos if I can find them on YouTube. If not, then I will leave a link to the AMC.com video post thing. Anyway, point is, there'll be a link down there and you guys can go watch them for yourself. So that's what I kind of think Rockin' the Road is leading to, on their way to that new community, on their way to Ezekiel in the Kingdom. They come across a rock in the road, so to speak, which was that big roadblock, and of course, whatever it was set up, like the explosive tripwire. So again, I think it's just going to be, that's what the Rockin' the Road's leading to. And I cannot wait to see this weekend's episode, guys. I am really, really excited. The hype is real. We're only a few days away at this point. Like what? I guess not counting Sunday, 2 days away. Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, of course, is The Walking Dead. All right, so everybody, that was my predictions for Season 7, Episode 9 of The Walking Dead. This was entitled Rock in the Road. And that's it. I'm glad I finally made my return to YouTube. Another video is actually coming tomorrow of some Resident Evil 7 that I recorded yesterday. I was planning on posting it on yesterday, but I couldn't get it rendered and stuff like that in time, so I apologize for that. But I have officially made my return to YouTube, and I hope that you guys do enjoy it. So I'm primarily a gaming channel. If you guys enjoy any of that stuff, make sure you guys go check out my other content. I work Well, I do work really hard on it when I work on it. You know what I mean? But like I said, I'm making a return now. I've kind of taken a break over the past couple of weeks, and that's about to stop. And actually, it's not about to stop. It has. Anyway, with that being said, it has stopped. Content and stuff. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go. All right. See you later. Bye.